everyone, my name is Vaishnavi Kumar. I am third year engineering student from Artificial Intelligence and Data Science. Today I am going to talk about a very important and basic concept in JavaScript, objects. I will explain what objects are, why we use them, and how they are used in real world coding. Let's get started. So, what is an object in JavaScript? An object is like a container that helps us store information in a structured way. Think of it like a real world objects, such as a person or a car, which has different features. For example, a person has a name like Alice, an age like 25, and maybe whether they are a student or not, true or false. In JavaScript, we can store all this information inside one object instead of making separate variables for each thing. Here is how it looks. This is a simple basic syntax. In this code, name, age, each student are called keys or properties, and Alice 25 true are called their values. Greet is function stored inside of objects. We call it a method. When we run it, it says hello. So, in simple word, an object helps us group related or data together and keep our code organized and clean. Now, let's talk about why use objects. Imagine you want to store information about a person like their name, age, and city. One way is to make three separate variables like this. Here is let name Vaishnavi 22 Solapur, but there is bit messy, right? All this data is about one person. So why wouldn't it be better to keep it together? That's where objects helps us. We can group all this related data under one single object. This is a user. Now everything is neatly packed inside one user object. It's easier to read, easier to manage, and it makes our code more organized. This is especially used when we work on a big projects like websites or apps where we'll deal with lots of users, products, or settings. So in simple words, objects helps us group related information together in one place, make our code clean, simple, and easy to work with. The second reason why we use objects in JavaScript is for real-world representation. This means we can use objects to represent real things like a person, a car, a product, or even an employee. Just like these things have features in their life, we can describe them using objects in our code. Let's take an example of car. Here is an example. Here we have created a car object. It has a brand, it has a model, and it tells us whether the car is electric or not. In this case, is false. So brand name is Tata, model name is Nixon, and is electric? No, is false. So instead of randomly storing these values, we connect them all together under one object that represents a real car. This makes our code more meaningful and easier to understand, especially when we use building real applications like a car, rental apps, shopping websites, and employee records. So in short, objects helps us bring real world things into our code so we can work with them more easily and naturally. The third reason to use objects is that you can store function inside them. When you do this, these functions are called methods. So think about real world things like a dog. A dog doesn't have just like properties like a name, but it can also do things like a bark. In JavaScript, you can create a dog object like this. So in this code, here is a dog named Bubby. The method called bark when we call dog bark method, it will print as oof. This means object can not only store data, but they can also perform actions, just like real things do the real world. So objects helps us make our code more organized and powerful by combining data and actions together. Another great thing about JavaScript object is that they are dynamically and flexible. This means you can add, remove, or change properties at any time, even after the object is created. For example, here is a code dog.age is equal to 3 means we add a new property like age with value 3. And here delete dog.name. So removes the name property from the object. You don't need define everything at the beginning. If you want to store more information later, so remove something that's no longer needed. You can easily do that. This makes object very useful when working with changing and growing data like user profile settings or app data that updates often. So this slide shows common JavaScript interview questions for engineering students. So what is an object in JavaScript? How it is different from an array? So this question is important because it checks if you understand of basic and useful data structure in JavaScript. So how it is expected to answer, let's see that. An object stores data in key value pairs. This means each piece of data has a name, key, and a value. For example, let's take a code like let person name Alice and age 24, 25. Here name and age are keys and Alice and 25 are their values. An array is a list of items stored in order and each item has a number called an index starting from 0. For example, take a let color is equal to red, green, blue. Here colors 0 is red, color 1 is green, and so on. So the key difference is use objects when you want to store data with specific name like properties of a person or products. Use array when you want to store orders like lists like a list of color, number, or names. This question tests whether you understand when and why to use each data structures. The next question is how do you create and assess properties of an object? It's important because it tests if you know the basic syntax of object and how to work with them. To create an object, you write its properties inside curly braces as key value pairs. For example, uh, let consider this code. Here, student is an object. Okay, so with two properties, name with the value Rahul and age with value 21. Now, to access this property, JavaScript gives us two main ways. One is dot notation. So you use a dot notation followed by the properties name. In this example, uh, we use notation for student dot name and output will Rahul. And in bracket notation, we use a square bracket. Here we use for age. So both ways work, but dot notation is easier and more common. Bracket notation is used when the property name is dynamic or has special character. So this question checks if you know how to create objects and access their data correctly. So the next question is what is the use what is the use of this keyword inside an object method? This is very common question because many students get confused about what this means in JavaScript. When you use function inside an object called a method, the keyword is referred to the object that is called a method. Let's think of an example. Let's take a person named Alice, and we use great functions, and we have to print hello and plus this name. So person great function will output will come hello Alice here. This dot name means the name property of a person object. So when greet runs this point to person and it prints hello Alice. Understanding this shows that you know how to work with the context of an object, meaning you understand that methods belongs to object, and this helps you refer back to the objects inside its method. So in this question, how can you loop through all keys in an object? This is very useful and when you want to process or use data, especially when working with data from APIs or JSON files. There are few common ways to loop through all object keys. Using for loop in loop, this lets you go through each key in the object one by one. So let's see first object.keys method. This method returns an array of all keys and then you can use a normal loop. Second method is object.values. If you only want a value, this gives you an array of all values. Then third is object.entries method. This returns an array of key value pairs which you can loop through easily. So these methods are very helpful to read or manipulate data stores in object. This question asks, what is the difference between shallow copy and deep copy of an object? And why it asks? It's important because it tests if you understand how copying objects work, especially when changing one object might affect another, which can cause bugs. A shallow copy means if the original object has another object inside it, like nested object, the copy only copies the references to those nested objects, not the actual nested object themselves. So let's think about this example. Here, object 2 is new object copying property from object A. If the properties are simple value like string or names, it works fine. But if object has nested objects inside objects too, which share those nested objects, so changes inside them will affect both. A deep copy means A deep copy means copying everything, included all nested objects, so the new object is completely independent. Deep copy is more complex and usually done with function or libraries because JavaScript doesn't have a built-in deep copy method. So, knowing this helps prevents accidental changes to your data when working with copies of objects. The next question is, what is JSON? How it is related to JavaScript objects? So JSON stands for JavaScript Objects Notation. It is a popular format used to store and send data between computers or apps, especially on the internet. JSON looks very simple to JavaScript objects because it also uses key value pairs. But there is one big difference. JSON is a string. That means it's just a text. For example, a JSON a JSON string looks like a name in that Alice and age in that 25. In JavaScript, it is just a text, not an actual object. To work with JSON in JavaScript, we use two methods, important methods. JSON.stringIf method. This converts a JavaScript object into a JSON string so it can be sent over the internet. And second is JSON.parse method. This converts a JSON string back into JavaScript object so we can use it in one code. So JSON is very important because it lets different programs share data in a standard way, and it's used in almost every app today. So the final is conclusion. I hope you understand what is objects in JavaScript. So let me give a description about it. Objects in JavaScript are really helpful because they let us store and organize related data together in one single place. Instead of using many separate variables, we can use one object to keep everything neat, clear, and easy to manage. Objects aren't just for storing data, they can also hold actions or functions called methods, which let us do things related to that data. As your code grown bigger and more complex, objects become super important to keep everything organized and working well. If you want to build real world project like apps, websites, or games, understanding objects is a key skill that will help you a lot. Thank you for watching my video.